Aloha and welcome to Turd Talk with Mary Ploppins. This is a little hantavirus pulmonary syndrome update that I wanted to share with you. I know that I am way behind everybody else who's screaming about this, but I do want to give a few guidelines on how to think about these different pandemics, whatever you want to call it, every time they come out with one, because there's always some BS that we shouldn't be afraid to ask questions. And these are the kinds of questions that when your family member who's still wearing a mask tells you that you need to stay away from them, they're not going to appreciate it. But, these are the questions that you will want to give them, because at some point, something will sink in. And, just again, I just want you to think about how we could interpret what we're being told, and not, I don't want to tell you what to think, but more about the how to think. So the first thing to know is that it is spread by infected rodents through their urine, feces, and saliva. That seems to be the one thing that they basically agree on, right? They have in more recent years, because this disease did not show up till 1993. Now they're saying that, oh, well, wait a minute, there might be a case. They said that it was reportedly found in South America, the Andes virus, and transmitted from person to person. And besides the word reportedly, notice that these places are always these far off lands where they claim, the real dangerous one is, right? So we saw that with Wuhan. It was like, what? I never heard of Wuhan, China, wet market, pangolin, bat. Like they try to make it really kind of viscerally disturbing. As a matter of fact, even with this, some news reports were pointing to rats, whereas it's the deer mouse that is more likely the one in the rodent in the United States that would carry such a thing. But yeah, they had to go for rat because rats give you a much more visceral, scary reaction or scared reaction to such a disease. Now, they do say that in people who are infected, particularly if it progresses, 4 in 10 people could die. That is the result of something I would call the standard of care. Actually, I don't call it that. They call it that. Standard of care means this is the decided upon protocol. Sometimes that means the one that the insurance companies are willing to pay out the most money for. We saw this with COVID, where the day after the Italian hospitals were saying, oh my God, it's the ventilators killing people, the US decided literally the very next day that they would shut down all other forms of treatment, and that only ventilators would be used until a few weeks or months later, when they decided to start using remdesivir more. And we know that killed people at about a 40 or I think it was a 40% rate. The other thing we need to know, we already went over basics of how it transmits. It doesn't actually transmit through your dogs and cats, which I find interesting, even if they eat them. So yes, it might bring a rodent into your home, but that would be the only way, supposedly. And I say supposedly because there's so much question as to whether or not viruses actually even exist, but I'm just playing along with their game. And you'll have to do that, by the way, with your family member or friend who's still wearing a mask. You just have to play the game and just catch them within their own frame of reference. So let's see. Hantavirus resembles several infections, including influenza, Legionnaire's disease, leptospirosis, mycoplasma, and Q fever. But you can only officially diagnose it with a blood test. So if they are using PCR tests, which I heard they wanted to start doing, that's not what PCR is for. It was never for determining illness. All it can tell you is whether or not there's particulate that they're looking at of anything. It doesn't say what it is. It just says there's something that we can see that maybe a normal microscope wouldn't be able to see. So keep all of those things in mind. Now, what's interesting is that they do not tell you that there is another way to get hantavirus, and that is from the COVID shot. So for people who got multiple shots, yeah, chances are they could develop this over time. And this document that I'm showing you right here is the post-marketing experience reported about the Pfizer vaccine from the FDA. And you can see it right there. Cumulative analysis of post-authorization adverse event reports received through February 28th of 2021. And that's the Pfizer vaccine. They say there's a negligible difference between Pfizer and Moderna. We'll get to those jokers later. So I will attach a copy of this that you can take a look at. And I would suggest keeping it on your hard drive for future reference. My big question is, are they trying to get ahead of another gain-of-function lab leak? Because that's the government-funded research that, well, the CDC, NIH, all those guys, they do this. They pay to have this research done, sometimes in foreign countries, to make something that's not contagious actually contagious. So there's always the excuse that, oh, we have to get ahead. Oh, if it's not us, it's going to be China. So just don't fall for it. Like, why would you even do this? It's just like the cloned animals. They had Dolly the sheep, and next thing you know, they're giving us 3D printed meat and probably cloned meat at this point. So don't fall for all of this weird science that they do. None of it's necessary. This is why people call the COVID jab a bioweapon, right? Because it's like, you're going to tell me that you're going to put poison in me with the spike protein, which is the thing that made it contagious in the first place, supposedly. So now you're going to give me the spike protein and you don't expect me to pass it on to other people. Yeah, square that circle. So this was actually pretty funny, and most of you have probably seen it, but I'm sure a few of you haven't. This is the crisis actor that was aboard the MV Hondius, where the first case of this hantavirus outbreak appeared.
I am currently on board the MV Hondius. What's happening right now is very real for all of us here. We're not just a story. We're not just headlines. We're people. People with families, with lives, with people waiting for us at home. There's a lot of uncertainty, and that's the hardest part. All we want right now is to feel safe, to have clarity.
This is what they do, right? They put out this guy. He just happens to be on the ship. And the reason why I say this is because not only did he do this, but he did this.
Let's get vaccinated. Gorgeous vaccinated girls get boosted. And gorgeous boosted girls get boosted again.
Yeah. So that joker, Jake Rosmarin, he is a crisis actor. Like, how in the hell did he happen to be on the MV Hondius just, at the right time to make such a video? And I mean, I guess we could ask whether or not he was actually on that boat, or if he happened to be on a different boat and just pretended like he was. I don't know. I don't really know what to believe anymore. So this is his bio, and one of the things that people found very interesting is that he was an intern for the Jerusalem Center for Public Affairs. And if you didn't know, Israel does a lot of this sketchy kind of research, which is, you know, quite disturbing. You can look it up. I mean, they were kind of at the center, and I'll show you. I can show you that too. They were at the center of the COVID pandemic. They even gave their population a population of people who were, many of whom their ancestors, at the very least, were medically experimented on by the Nazis. Yet they were the first ones to take it. So there's some weird stuff going on over there. But check this out. Somebody found this person who just happens to be Rachel Rosemarin, and that is the sister of that guy we just looked at. And what does she do? She works for MPH Global Health. She's skilled public health and emergency management professional with 8 years of experience providing technical assistance, research, communication, and administrative support to a range of clients. So, it's kind of a weird, cozy connection, and just too many coincidences that we need to be aware of, right? Because we'll come back to that. Just give me a second here. But on the MV Hondias, they claimed that or at least the reports that came out afterwards, because I do have, and I'm not even going to show it to you, but I do have a video that was taken of the captain saying that the ship's doctor said, there's one guy, he died of natural causes, no need to be alarmed. And then suddenly it turned into like 2 or 3 and now 5 people who had gotten it from that ship. And there's questions that we need to ask, because I think it's very odd. They say the first 2 people, it was a couple, they went for a walk through a bird sanctuary. And don't you find it weird that they always find a way to throw nature under the bus and never consider side effects from, possibly the food that was on board? We don't know if the guy was on a special diet, and maybe he got, whatever his gluten-free food that just happened to have, maybe some rat droppings in it, or who knows, because they're, if he needs that food, maybe they thought they could get away with it. I'm not saying that that's what they did, but I've been in institutional and large scale restaurant kitchens, and they do some nasty stuff behind the scenes that you would not eat in a restaurant again if you knew what most restaurants are willing to do, especially when they're doing that scale, that amount of food. We don't know if something got into it. We don't know if it was like way expired, because, again, I don't know why I'm leaning so much into the special diet thing, but let's just say that's the only reason why a few people got it. Maybe that gluten-free thing or whatever, special dietary needs he had, maybe that thing has been on there for 10 years and they finally got to use it, and it's like, oh, it doesn't look great, but we don't really have a choice except to feed it to the guy and his wife. The other thing that it could be is that the supplier could have changed. There might be some like weird genetically engineered ingredient to which he was allergic. That is happening more and more these days. If you ever look at some of the products that you have been buying for years, you might be surprised to see that all of a sudden it says made with genetically engineered ingredients, not to mention the tens of thousands of pesticides that go into our food system. Or, I guess this wasn't in the United States, but these are just things to be aware of. We really don't know what's going on. And then there's the issue of industrial cleaning products. Like how bad are they? How new are they? Sometimes people, I'm a former allergy sufferer, and I know that a lot of industrial cleaning products would make me deathly ill. Could it be something like that? Like there's hotels that have even caught the cleaning people, using the same shit they used on the mirror to clean the drinking glasses in the rooms. So, there's a lot of ways that a handful of people could get sick on a boat. And that is where my brain goes, not to, oh, the guy in the next room got sick and now I'm sick. Like that's mostly an illusion for a lot of people. Now, what happened next? Oh, okay. So check this out. Ultimately, we have no idea how this person died or if they died, because the news lies all the time. And even when they're trying, I have been interviewed on occasion by newspapers, and they almost always get it wrong. So even when they're trying to do something correct, they're filtering it through whatever brain rot they're going through, and they will report the news incorrectly because that's the only thing that makes sense to them. Now, the other thing to consider is that they might actually have started this because they already have hantavirus vaccines ready to go. And of course, they are mRNA based. There's actually a dozen of these hantavirus vaccines. The important thing to note here is that there's freaking 6 of them, six of them from the US Army. They are all DNA vaccines. There's 3 mRNA vaccines, 2 viral vector vaccines, 1 inactivated, which is the one that's licensed in Korea, and then the protein subunit. So, is this another money-making scam? Is this something to simply get tech into people? And remember that when you have a genetically modified plant and it contaminates an organic garden, the organic garden, unless they act first, they will get sued by the makers of the genetic modification for stealing their tech. And I do have an article that I had written a few years ago on Myriad Genetics, which was a company that was making vaccines with genetic modifications in them. And the Supreme Court actually judged that because they own those sequences, they own the people in whom those sequences are now. So that could be, when people talk about digital slavery and so on. So yeah, well, they're kind of setting themselves up to look like they're actually trying to do this kind of stuff. And don't blame me for being a conspiracy theory. It's documented. And if they're not going to tell the truth, all I have are the theories. Now, the one thing I did want to address is Israel, because actually, I want you to pay attention to this. Check this out. Okay, so in March 21st, 2021, it says, Israeli scientists are on the cusp of developing the first vaccine against the novel coronavirus. Right? And it's going to be available in about 90 days. That makes no freaking sense, because there was already a shot on the market. And the reason why it doesn't make any sense, I had to put this through the web archive, the Wayback Machine, and you'll see that this was actually done in February of 2020. So they went back like a year ago, because I checked all the dates. So we went back about a year ago, and they changed the date. So as much as everybody wants to point to, Fort Detrick or Wuhan, there is no way in hell they just happened to get the right vaccine ready by February 2020 if they were not intimately involved in this entire project. This is where we are right now. How Hantavirus made Moderna a must-own stock again. So Moderna, if you do not know anything about their history, they did not have a successful product technically ever, but let's just say until 2021 or 2020 when they were given this contract to make the COVID vaccine. The reason why I say that they never had a successful product is because their test subjects, which I believe were at the time only rodents and other small animals, as opposed to humans. Yeah, they everything died. Like, they had so many deaths in those groups that they were never able to come to market, except somehow the government calculated that it was more worth having them create one of the COVID vaccines than to go with something. I worked for Pfizer. I'm not touting them, but let's just call them the tried and true um, pharmaceutical company that didn't have quite as many deaths under its belt, but they needed that emergency use authorization in order to get anything to market. So the COVID shot was literally the only thing they ever put out. And if you're paying attention, you saw how many people died, got cancer, went blind, or whatever from these shots, which are pretty much the same shot anyway. And this was also actually the same date as that CDC doc. This was on May 8th that this came out. And I guess that most of us were asking enough questions and not, people were just calling them out left and right on social media for basically just lying their way through the whole thing. And I think they saw it wasn't going to go anywhere because people were not going to fall for it again. I mean, they tried, I think, at least once a year since 2020 to launch new pandemics, the monkeypox, which seemed to come back at least twice during that time. But yeah, people aren't falling for it anymore. And I think the people who would fall for it don't pay enough attention to the news to even know that it happened. And so as of right now, Moderna stock loses steam. It's like literally 3 days after they posted that other article. Loses steam, hantavirus trade fizzles as officials dismiss pandemic risk. So this is just the same roller coaster ride that they want to keep taking us on. It's kind of pathetic. We just need to stay vigilant, guys. I don't know what else to tell you. Don't fall for the BS. I don't know if this is intended to be like a distraction from the failed war or the pedophiles in the government who eat babies, or the mass surveillance apparatus that they're implementing all across the United States, or something else. You let me know. What do you think is the reason behind all of this? Because they keep bringing this kind of stuff up and then it fizzles out again. They're back on the alien thing right now as I say this. Who the hell knows what the truth is? So, let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know if this is the kind of content you want to see. I am still working on my book. I apologize it's taking so long. It's the last time I will work with a publisher. I will tell you that much. So, but I already invested, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Here we go. Hopefully we'll have it by the end of the summer. Actually, it should be out by then, but I am also going to be off island. My daughter is graduating from college finally, and we're going through a lot of changes here at home. So I apologize again for taking so long to get this out to you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching and listening and reading. And if you found this valuable, please share it out with your friends, give me a like, and leave your comments below. You have a great day. Talk to you soon.